Hello, APNA Virtual 2023. Welcome to the Temp and Backup Care panel with Lindsay Rose, Erin Carol Manning, and Brianna Edwards. My name's Lindsay Hooper. I'm going to be your moderator for this panel, and I am so excited for the discussion we're about to have. So I want to start off introducing our panelists. We have three experts. So Lindsay, kick us off.
Yeah, hi, I'm Lindsay Rose. I'm so excited to be here and talk about temp and backup care with everybody today. I am with Mom's Best Friend and Bail Sitters, and I have been with them for 9 years. So I serve as their president, and it is my honor and privilege to be here today. I'm excited.
Great. We're so thrilled to have you. Erin, do you want to introduce yourself for us?
Sure. I'm Erin Carol Manning. I own Gentle Drafts Newborn Care out of Massachusetts. We are a postpartum and our pregnancy and postpartum agency. So we basically, focus more like 6 months pregnant all the way to probably about 6 months postpartum timeframe.
Okay. Wonderful. I'm excited to get into that. And Brianna, tell us about your background.
My name is Brianna, and I own On Call Nanny, and we focus on primarily corporate backup care and backup care. We have some of our own clients as well. And then we have been in business since 2006.
Beautiful. Well, welcome. I know our audience is here to really sort of soak up the information. So I think we get right into it. I'm going to start. I think this is a question for all of you, but Erin, let's kick off with you. For those using temp services, can you share a few tactics you utilize to generate more hours and more revenue?
Sure. So since we are a pregnancy and postpartum agency, we have a couple of different ways that clients can customize their own packages. I do have an a la carte price, and I do also have a custom package price too. But then we also have lactation consultations. We also have expecting parent classes. We also have day services as night services and 24s. So we can kind of do a lot of different things based on what the clients are looking for and their needs. And we can kind of customize anything for them. So it's not so much that it's like one thing here and then we got to generate something else. It's kind of, we're constantly always generating different ways to generate revenue.
That's great.
Awesome. Lindsay and Brianna, I'm wondering if you have anything for this question.
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely boosting revenue for us. Actually, I will tell you, one of the great things that we're actually putting together this year, we've always had a sort of one fee structure, and sort of that's been our client's fee structure. This is what it is. You pay, this daily rate. Well, we're actually moving more towards a subscription model pricing this year, which gives families a lot of different options for their childcare needs. So they're not just in a box, which I think will end up boosting revenue. I think it will help the company be more sustainable. So we're not as reliant upon one-off bookings. We're really going to have more of a subscription-based model that helps us have some consistency and be able to serve families in a more consistent way as well. So I think that definitely will boost revenue. In the past, we've really utilized email campaigns, promotions, various things to boost revenues, boost bookings, things like that.
Mm-hmm. So on our end, ours is a little bit different in that we have the same thing. We have a subscription-based model for, a monthly subscription base for our private clients that we serve. However, we employ our nannies, which means that we can't do a flat rate the same way, like a flat fee per booking type thing, because we have to pay our employees hourly, right? So it's a little bit different. However, on the flip side of that, for our corporate clients, where we, for our networks, we don't have a say, or we don't have a say in generating more hours with those clients, with the exception of, preferring our nannies, right? Like if they request our nannies or our agency, that kind of thing, there's that. But outside of that, we don't really have a way to bump up those clients. That said, we're not needing to bump them up. There's more than enough. What we need are nannies. So right. We focus on bringing on the nannies, not necessarily increasing the services per client. Yeah.
Wonderful. I would have to actually agree with you on that too, is that we need more NCSs and postpartum doulas in locally in certain areas too, because we're just getting calls left and right from all sorts of different states too. And it's a lot of clients can't always do 24s or do live-ins. And so it's finding the people that actually live there to be able to get in locally there. So it's the same thing. It's hard. It's not about like really generating the revenue. It's actually about getting people in the homes.
Right.
Yeah. So actually piggybacking off that, another question I have here is for those who employ backup care nannies, how do you handle requests for multiple days that are 24 hours a day?
Yeah, I can jump on a little bit on this one. So the way we handle it is we put our nannies first in almost everything. Our nannies kind of run the show. So they get to say if they want the job or not. And if they don't want to do a 24-hour straight job, they're not gonna. So we have to really reframe things for the client and explain to them like, hey, chances are you're not going to find somebody that's going to be the same person for all of these hours straight. That's a really hard sell for the nanny. However, we could get you 2 or 3 and they would love it. And you'll be very grateful and you'll have 3 expert caregivers.
I kind of do the same thing too, but it depends on if it's going to be a live-in job or if it's going to be a local job too. So if it's local, I'll say, depending on how many days that you're looking for, we may have to split it between 2 people just so that they end up having time off, and depending on how many weeks they're looking for of it as well. But if it's live-in, then I say it's usually 1 person and they'll interview them instead of me just saying, this is who's going to your house, you know.
Yeah.
And same thing, like I don't have a lot of say in whether who's going to go to what client too, for multiple reasons. One is because they are independent contractors. I don't have that ability to just schedule them. I have to make sure that they want the job, they're available for the job, and they're willing to do it. Versus if I just was be able to schedule people as a regular, employee.
Absolutely. I know we started this by saying like, let's get right into it, but can we take a step back? I'm curious if you guys can help clarify, especially for sort of the newer agencies who are present, the black and white difference between temp and backup care, so that, we all have the context we need as we go forward.
Yeah. Do you want to go first, Lindsay?
Well, our backup care business is actually under our temporary division. So it's all in the same division. And in our case, we use the same nannies or sitters, both for our private families and for our backup care families as well. So, but there is a difference, right? You're talking about private families. So families who pay a membership to your agency, subscriptions, whatever it is, that hire our sitters for private backup care date nights, one-off childcare experiences. Plus, then you have partnerships. In our case, we partner with Bright Horizons, and we are a third-party vendor for Bright Horizons, and we place, we accept jobs from Bright Horizons and we place our nannies in them. Of course, our nannies, it's the same way. They accept jobs. We don't just place them in jobs. They choose the jobs that they want, and then we book them on those positions. And so it's sort of the other thing we also have private backup care where we work with businesses in Dallas and Fort Worth that pay a membership to our company for their employees. So they offer care as a benefit to their employees. So we have companies that pay a yearly subscription for that, and we service those backup care clients privately.
Okay, that's great. And I keep hearing you say your nannies are in charge here, and it just sounds like such an equitable relationship. I love hearing about this.
Well, it's so important. I mean, I think especially in a temp business, and right, things continue to evolve and change, but they have to be willing participants. Like, we want them to choose jobs that they feel great in, that they feel alive in, that they work with families that they love, that we place them with families that love them and care for them equally. That's really important for us. I mean, I think for all of our businesses, if we don't do that, and we've seen that in our industry, lots agencies that do not do that and do not put their nannies first, but put their clients above their nannies, they have a really hard time surviving, because, we need to treat these I mean, they're the reason why we're all in business.
Exactly.
Without them, we have no business. So
Especially in this economy when it's so hard to find not just workers, but good workers that
Right.
care about their job. And let's be honest, childcare industry is not known for taking great care of their workers.
Right.
It's not. And so for the applicants that we have come in and the employees that we have come, a lot of them come from industries that they have felt very taken advantage of or abused or neglected or just fried and exhausted. And we want them to come to us and feel
yes.
and be excited to work with us. And so we do everything we can possibly do to make that experience for them.
Right.
Yeah, I'm very protective of my my NCSs and postpartum doulas that work for me too, for the exact same reason. Plus, I've also worked in the home, and I know how the power dynamic can be when you are actually having a difficult conversation with the client in their own home. So I have a strong personality, so I'm easier. I can kind of put that line down compared to some of, the women who work with me. And also it's hard too, when you are in the home, because I've been there as well, to put your foot down when you are in that home, because you do see certain things and you feel bad, but then you're also like, if I do this, I might have, it'll be taken advantage of or what have you. So I'm very, I'm very cognizant. I can't even speak, but
Cognizant.
yes, cognizant about my, the people who work with me too, on that level as well. And we've had a couple of, NCSs call me and say, hey, look, this is what's going on. And I've had to, talk with the client and let them know that, hey, this is what can go on legally and this what can't go on legally. And, let's try to figure it out.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I feel like we have a couple sort of situations that towards the end of this, I would love to get your feedback on how to best handle. And I think especially being in that client's home while having to handle a potentially uncomfortable situation has to be, handled pretty gingerly. So let's foundationally talk about, how do you operate your temp business? Is it an employment model or a referral model? Erin, I know you do things a little bit differently. So I would love to get everyone's 2 cents here.
Yeah. So, one of the interesting things about us is we actually were previously on the employment-based model. We've actually sort of gone back and forth throughout the years on employment-based model or referral based model. We feel like right now, especially in our market and especially what we're dealing with now in Dallas and Fort Worth, we are on the referral based model right now, but we've been on the employment based model. And I mean, we were talking about this beforehand. I don't think there's really like a right or wrong. I think really it's a matter of you dissecting each one of those models and determining how you want to run your business, the best things about your business. I think there's great things about the employment model and there's really difficult things about it. Same on the referral based model. So there's not really like a one glove fits all, in my opinion. I think it really is based upon you as an agency, what are y'all's values and core values and what goals and, financials and all of the different things. And then also, just your market as well. I think city to city, it really makes a big difference. Competitors as well. We're all referral based models here in Dallas and Fort Worth. So it works for us, but it may not work in another city.
Yeah.
So I operate more on an employment model, although they're all independent contractors. And the way to be able to do that legally is that they're all have to be an LLC, not just doing business as, but they have to have an LLC. So I'm paying business to business, even though, and then I also have to make sure that I'm very, mindful of how I'm talking to them about the job too. Like, I can't say, hey, you're going to go to this client. I have to say, hey, we have a client that's coming in June. Are you free? Or, even if I know that they are, or, hey, the client would like this. Can you do this? Can you do that kind of thing? Because again, it's very strict on how the relationship between the company and the worker in that way. And in Massachusetts, it's like a fine line. And I don't really want to go into that fine line and get in trouble basically. So I'm really strict about how, at least me personally, on how I'm speaking to the people who work with me, and making sure that they all have LLCs, they all have their ducks in a row with everything and their insurance and all of that for it too.
Now, is that a common rule or is that a Massachusetts specific thing?
So Massachusetts makes it really hard to have independent contractors, because so you have to kind of follow like the 3-prong rule, which is like, if are you making the hours? Are you using your own tools? Are you able to put anybody in the job without asking the family? You know, and if you can do all of those things, you are an independent contractor. If the family can kind of do one of those things, they are, you're an employee. Now, since I set kind of the minimum hours, I thought the minimum hours just so that my team has kind of an understanding of what their paychecks are going to be, or how long the contract's going to be, or what they can kind of do. But I also talk to them at the beginning and say, hey, look, this is how we run things. Are you okay with that? And they're okay with it, to kind of get around with that too. But it's also based on so that they understand what's going to happen too. So I have a minimum amount of hours per night that they work. And I have like our packages is based on a minimum of 6 weeks and a minimum of 2 overnights. And then we also have like our a la carte too. So we can get around with it in that way, but it's that I'm not just saying you have to do this. I'm asking them and saying, this is how we run it. But it's based on when I was by myself, what I needed to be able to know how to pay my bills. And so I just kind of turned that over to them, and thought it would be respectful to them so that they had some sort of, like they could budget basically.
Yeah, that sounds really transparent and probably good for all parties, and especially the nannies. Brianna, how do you operate your temp business? Are you employment model or are you
For employment? Yeah, we are full employment. We used to do both. We used to have referral and employment. And prior to the pandemic, we made a decision to make everything employment. And we're glad we did. There are definitely pros and cons, like Lindsay discussed. It's not easy. It's not easy. And profit margins are definitely different. There's no way around that. It's, you know, when you're taking care of the taxes on everything, you're gonna have a lot higher labor cost. That's really all there is to it. But we operate in the greater Seattle and San Francisco Bay areas. And if anybody's familiar with California is a state you don't want to mess with when it comes to employment laws. They are hardcore and seriously, no joke. You just don't mess with California. And the liability became way too high for us to be able to continue to do referral based. And what we have found that has worked in our favor is the vast majority of the nannies that come to us are incredibly grateful that we do it this way. And I think, you know, like Lindsay said, different markets are very different. There was a time when nannies wanted to be paid by the clients directly because they had a little more say in things. But I think now our nannies are really, really happy to have the security. They know that they're getting their PTO. They know that they're getting their sick pay. They know that they're taken care of. They don't have to go, and there's a level of comfort knowing that they don't have to advocate for themselves to get the funds from the client. They just know that they can, if the client for whatever reason is throwing attitude in one way or another about funds, the nanny doesn't have to deal with it. The nanny can just walk away and they're happy about that. And then they still get paid. So it's great. And they appreciate, you know, if they get canceled on last minute, they don't have to be the one to go get the funds for that. We pay them for that because we are able to bill the client and take, ownership of that. So there's definitely some pros and there's some cons. It's good and bad on both sides. There's
also you're comparing California laws to Texas laws, and it's very state by state too. So it's important whenever you make those decisions that you really look at. And one of the greatest things too, and I don't know if you guys can agree with me, but I mean, we have an incredible insurance agent too. And a lot of it just comes down to finding the right insurance that you can afford and works with you and works in your state and, and all the laws. So there's a lot that goes into it. One of the greatest things about this industry is people are definitely willing to talk about their experiences too. So find a few agencies who have done in your state both models and get all of those real life pros and cons. And then, you can make a healthy decision from there. And you can always go back too. You do it for a few years and you're just like, it's not working. moving those models, I wouldn't say is easy, but it is possible.
Yeah, agreed. And
Yep.
really state specific. State specific, it matters.
Yeah,
I feel like if we were in Texas, we might do it differently.
it's very interesting,
Yeah.
you know, state to state.
I think it's also, you know, you got to ask the nannies or the NCSs or postpartum doulas too of what they prefer as well, because it really is dependent on them what they want, especially for the model as well, because there's a lot of NCSs and postpartum doulas that they want the referral model, work with an agency that does the referral model because they run their own contracts, they run their own pricing, they run all of that. And that's wonderful for them too. And then there's also other ones again that may not be as strong and they want like the agency to run that contract for them. I have a girl who is phenomenal and she could be one of the best in the country, but she doesn't want to run her own contract. She told me, she's like, I don't ever want to run a contract again. So I run it for her, you know. It's just the different people and what they want.
Erin, you brought up a really good point too. I think in backup care, because it's not the same client Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, we attract a talent base that is fairly transient, and that they're in the middle of other things. They're backfilling another career. They're backfilling their schooling, their travel, whatever. They're building something else up. They're starting a family, whatever the situation may be. This is not their big focus. They don't want to, we do have full-time nannies, but most of them are not. And for the ones that are not full-time, for them to take on the ownership of being the boss and everything and having to advocate for themselves and be responsible for all the taxes and all the, all the filings, all those things, that's a lot for somebody who's like, I'm just doing this to backfill. Yep. As opposed to, right, somebody who's like, this is my career. I am an NCS. I plan on doing this for the next 30 years of my life or whatever, right? I think it's a very different employment base.
So
Absolutely.
That begs the question though, Brianna, like, how do you actually recruit for these backup care positions?
Yeah, definitely differently than other agencies, in that we don't post ads on care.com. We don't find great successes on social media, that kind of stuff. The predominant source is Indeed, and it's marketed in a way that is extremely flexible. Backfill your hours. You have a say in when and where you want to work, and we can work with you on that. And we have great success with that, which is good.
It's, again, I think this is definitely city by city, market by market. We actually do in Dallas see a lot of return on, there are private babysitter Facebook groups that I think all of our markets have, where literally all of these, sitters promote themselves, and we have the opportunity to link our, application, direct message them with opportunities and things like that. We also work our perm candidates a lot. So when they're looking for full-time positions, they may have a month or two, sometimes 3 or 4, where they find that permanent placement. And so we supplement their income in our temp division, and we get a lot of work out of them for short periods of time. And then just, like Brianna said, I mean, it's supplemental income. So people who want to supplement, we have a lot of teachers who want to supplement their income on the weekend, school holidays, things like that. And we definitely promote it as a flexible position where they're in charge of the jobs that they get to accept. So.
So I do it kind of differently. I'm very lucky that I know a lot of NCSs and postpartum doulas just from taking different classes across the country and, working with them, and also just being in the industry for so long too, that I tend to reach out to them individually. And if that doesn't work, it's also trying to find them on social media, or I will ask them, who do you know that could possibly be free? Who has this criteria that I'm looking for? Can you, make an introduction kind of thing with that? And then if I can't do that either way, it's going out to social media, just onto the different Facebook groups and putting an ad there.
That's wonderful. You don't think of so many sources when you're not eat, sleep, breathing nanny and backfilling every day. But it's great. So when you're doing the temp thing, the fee is typically higher than your long-term fee, right?
It's just a different structure. We have both divisions. We have a temporary division, which again is those daily fees for us, referral fees, and then the families pay the nannies directly. So that is the model of our temp division. But we also have a permanent placement division for families who want to hire a long-term placement. So they have a set schedule. They need someone either, high part-time. So we're talking 30, 35 hours a week, consistent schedule, full-time. And so those are two different divisions, and some of our candidates bleed over into the different divisions and work both. But yes, I mean, they operate completely separate on two separate different models.
So if a client seeks to extend from temp to long-term, that would mean two different fee structures. How would you sort of communicate that both with the nanny and the client?
We actually do have this quite a bit, where a family loves the sitter that they got from our temporary division. They decide they really want to keep their kids home from daycare. They want to hire this person full time. And so they pay a placement fee, just like our permanent placement division would sell to them. We would too. So if you want to hire Susie for your full-time position, it would be a 15% placement fee of her gross annual income. So they would come off of the temp model and then be placed on the permanent placement model. That's how we would handle it.
So I have like an a la carte price, and then I have a package price. So if they were just doing a la carte and they chose to go to a package model, I would just do the math and prorate it for them going forward.
You don't do it enough.
It's
a very small portion of our business. We don't do it enough.
Yeah.
So we have actually about 10 minutes left in this session. And we sourced some questions from other agency owners that we actually think that you three could be really helpful in answering these very sort of situation specific questions. And so they're a little all over the map, but I'd love to take some time, the time we have left, and run through that. So the first one, I'm looking to pay my temp nannies directly. What costs do I need to know about?
So many.
Great, tell us, unpack that.
So there's the whole payroll component of it, where right off the bat, I recommend you have a payroll provider. If you want to do it yourself, through QuickBooks, you can. I know agencies that do that. I know plenty of business owners that do that. It's a lot. And so I have a payroll company that does it for me. So that's like the first and foremost is I feel like that, but then you have insurance on top of that. And there's a couple different types of insurance. Like you have your business insurance that's going to change because you have employees. And then you have to have insurance on those employees. So you have, in Washington, for example, you can't have, it's a funny state when it comes to unemployment insurance, where you have to go through the state. So they kind of have this monopoly thing going. So you have to provide unemployment insurance for your employees through the state. And then, all these other states, you can go to the free market and you can go and negotiate and you can do all these different things and get different bids, but not in Washington. Nope, you're stuck with L&I. So there's a whole nother layer there. It's not to mention benefits. And, I think a lot of people underestimate all that can come into play with employment, which is why when we tell our families too, right? Like when families want to hire a nanny, we're like, be aware.
It's a lot. It is a lot, even for private families, I mean, there's a lot to employment. I mean, really, if you really break it down, there's a lot to either one of the options, that you can. So you should just go in with your eyes wide open on all of your, tax liabilities, your insurance for our industry is continually going up. And so, just definitely pursue all those options before you just make a decision. Again, I go back to, I just don't think that there's a right or wrong answer in terms of employment or referral. I think there's a lot of really good benefits and security reasons why you would go employment model. So.
And also I'd say, it's obviously very state specific, but even like county and city specific as well.
Yeah,
Seattle has very different laws than, Eastern Washington, and San Francisco proper, they like to tack on another 30 on top of that, versus, LA, for example.
So for us, since we do postpartum doulas and NCSs, there's kind of three ways they can be paid. They can be paid through me, the agency. They can be paid through the family as an independent contractor, or they could be paid through the family as an employee. However, if they're going to be paid as an employee versus independent contractor, no matter who's paying them, there really needs to be a solid line of what service they're bringing into the home. So if they're getting paid as an employee, they're really being almost like an expert nanny in newborns, because they're, again, having to take direction from the families, the hours are from the families, all that kind of logistics with that. Or if they're an independent contractor, they've got to come in and actually be that independent contractor. They've got to come in and be that, not only just the expert, but they're running the show, as in, like, I don't want to say they're directing the parents on what's going to happen with the baby, but they're directing the parents on what is going to happen with the baby, kind of thing. They're coming in to educate, guide, and support the families. So they're the ones that are structuring how it's going to go. That would be the difference of how they're going to get paid via employee or independent contractor. And it's the same thing if they're getting paid through me. I expect them to go in and be the expert. I expect them to lead the family on how things are going. If there's medical stuff going on, yes, we follow what the doctors say. If there's something that the family really truly is like, no, this is what I want, sure, we will follow that. At the end of the day, though, we're still giving them what is the best kind of practice for the baby and the situation that's at hand, and educating them on that and kind of guiding them. Like, I have a client right now, I've got to send them some healthy and sustainable sleep habits and routines for day and night. And it's their choice if they want to use it, but they've asked me for it. And so we'll go through that and I'll help guide them for that, so that it's giving their baby a solid foundation going forward. Now, I've given it to other people or clients and they've wanted to follow it, but they don't end up following it. So at the end of the day, we're like, okay, we're just going to have to, shift gears here and do what we need to do when we're there. But I would actually say that a lot of it really comes down to how the nanny is working in the family's home and how the family's treating them too, on which way that they would be paid.
Okay, lovely. Lovely. Speaking of sort of a situation in the actual home, Lindsay, I believe you've recently dealt with this. Regarding backup care, have you ever refused to fill a position because the nanny reports that the house was so messy that it was uncomfortable? If so, how did you handle this?
Yes, multiple times has this happened to us. Yes. So, I mean, it's a little bit different in two different scenarios. Number one, if it's a private family, right, that would be on our plate to talk to the family about the cleanliness of the home and how it's important for us and for our nannies to come into a clean, safe environment. And so we wouldn't necessarily just go ahead and fire them as a client. We would give them one more opportunity to structure the home in a way that's sustainable for our nannies to come in and operate correctly with their kids and, be in a really good, safe, clean environment. The great thing about it, if it's on the backup care part of our business, is we just decline, and we can actually decline that particular family and not be on, we would never be able to accept that family's position ever again. We can actually say, and it's kind of great because we don't have to have that conversation. Bright Horizons, our corporate care partners, get to have that conversation with them. We simply get to just decline that family and decline that job.
Speaking of Bright Horizons, I know you guys have gotten a lot of questions about this in the past when you've had similar conversations at different panels. So I'm curious, let's say I'm looking to partner with a corporate network. What criteria would I need to meet?
Yeah, we actually did talk about this in our last session that we have, and we actually discussed this a little bit beforehand. So I'll start. I'm sure we all have a lot of things to say. I think one of my biggest pieces of advice, well, the criteria is really sort of different. You're going to negotiate a contract with that corporate care provider. So just know that. I think one of the things that my piece of advice for you would be to really dissect that contract, make sure that you go into that relationship with your eyes wide open, truly understanding what the relationship is on paper. I know it's easy for us to have these really good sort of sweetheart conversations whenever we make business deals and decisions. This is a really important one for your business because you are locked into a contract, which means that you will, per that contract, be able to do certain things and not do other things. And so, one of those things that I'm, pretty open about is like one of the things that these corporate providers want you to do is solely use them for backup care. And there are other providers. So it's important that you read that contract. If you only want to work with that company, then you can definitely sign that, or you can negotiate an option where you can work with multiple providers at once for your business. And really depends on your business. What are your dreams and aspirations, and where do you see you guys going in the future? But we have had a good experience in a lot of ways working with backup care companies. They offer you a lot of business, and they offer your business a lot of opportunity for growth. I think the biggest piece of advice is just to go in with your eyes wide open, understand who they are, what they do for you, what they don't do for you, and understand that contract in its fullest,
I'll take that
And
one.
I would suggest to go over that contract with your lawyer before
Bingo.
you sign it too, because there's a lot of things that we may understand in layman's terms, but then they're written in legalese, and it's like, whoa, wait a minute, what does this mean? So, just to go over line by line with them, so you at least have a full understanding of what it means. So if and when there are contract issues, you understand what's happening.
I think it's really important that people understand when you are a small business, and we are all not just small, we're pretty micro, right? Like we're micro size, and we're dealing with corporations that are billion-dollar corporations. Right. And they are formulating these contracts. You're not writing the contract. You can negotiate the contract. And it's really important that you understand the contract, but it's really important you go in, like Lindsay said, with your eyes open, and know that a billion-dollar corporation is not going to present you a contract that's in your favor. They're not. That's not in their best interest. It's going to be a contract in their favor. And you need to see how many of those things, one, you can negotiate, and two, are you okay with that? Like, does it work for you or does it not? And it's hard to know that before you really dive into it. Really get an attorney that's on your side. And maybe somebody who understands the industry a little bit to overlook it and, kind of review it and evaluate and say, well, this says this. What does that mean in real life? What does that mean? What's the scenario where this will play out? And what does that mean for your company? Like at the bottom, what does that mean for your bottom line? What does that mean for your employees? What does that mean for your admin team? What does that mean for, your insurance plan? Like what is it going to look like? And it's rather than just reading through, because you think you understand it. And then you might find out down the road that you didn't.
Yeah. I've also found too that with lawyers, everything's kind of per experience too. So you can have it all written out like this, but then you have to get the lawyers involved, and one lawyer is going to advocate this way and another lawyer is going to advocate this way. Neither one of them, I want to say, is ultimately wrong. It's just based on how they're each interpreting the law, the contract, and the situation that brought them together.
Yeah, agreed.
Follow-up question for Brianna. Negotiation. How open are these corporate networks typically to negotiating different points in the contract?
So I like to think that every contract is deeply negotiable, right? I like to think that ability to negotiate comes with how much clout do you come with, right? Mm-hmm. If you are a strong enough partnership, they'll bend bridges for you, right? Like they'll make that happen. They will make things happen for you if you are a big enough asset to have on their team. If you're not, they won't. So how hardball do you want to roll with it? you kind of have to play your cards and be like, okay, well, I can offer this many nannies and we can provide this much care. I'm pretty sure we can serve this many clients in this amount of time frame. That could be a great asset for them, in which case that gives you a lot of negotiating power, which is great, right? You can negotiate all kinds of other things in there. Or it might be one of the situations where like, oh, I can only do this much. That might not be enough for them, in which case you won't have as much leeway in there. But some of the things I would, pay attention to is, one, there's the rate. There's just the rate right out the gate. Like, that's negotiable. Talk to other agencies. Ask them to be honest about what they're making from these clients. Like, that was a huge eye opener to me when I realized that everybody's making different rates. I was like, wait, what? That's a huge one. Things when it comes to billing terms, that's a big one. Billing terms is a huge one. Things like cancellation policies, things like cancellation policies is a big one. I might get sidetracked and stuck on that one for a minute, because there's a lot of feels on that one. But there's things in there to negotiate. Insurance, like, what's your insurance limits that they require? That's a negotiable one, where it's like maybe they're requiring 3 billion aggregate, and you're like, oh, 3 million might just put me over the limit too much. Can they come down to 1 million? Things like that.
And a lot of times they will on certain things like that. In fact, with Bright Horizons, one of the things they'll say, like, if you are not, just if you want the option to be able to work with multiple different corporations, they may put you on a different tier. So you may be in the round robin offering of jobs, and you may be on a different tier than other agencies. So, and I mean, it may be worth it. Talk to the people in your world. I also realized, and other agencies realized, that we were all being paid in the same market, different bill rates, or we were billing at different rates. And so that's definitely a big one.
Yeah.
So.
If you talk to agencies, most of them will be pretty honest with you about it.
Oh, yeah, they got a lot to say.
I think it also is going to come in how you word things, in how what you bring to the table is going to benefit their company.
Yes.
Like for me, like, I'd go in and be like, well, if you have overnight support, for instance, as a benefit to your families, not just the birthing parent, what that's going to do is going to have them be fresh when they come back from maternity leave or paternity leave. They're going to be getting enough sleep. They're not going to be overtired. They're going to be ready to run out the gate, and it's going to be beneficial for your company, because they're not going to be sluggish when they start back. They're not going to be this. They're going to be ready to go. I think so. It really depends on how you're wording it, and how what we bring to the table is going to benefit the company, and how they feel they want to negotiate with you. And also, you can increase the rate based on how it's going to benefit them too.
Yeah, agreed.
Well, this is an eye opener. So we have like a few moments left in this, because you are all so knowledgeable. I'm wondering if there's any sort of advice or food for thought you would like to leave the audience with before we head into the Q&A.
Talk to other agency owners. Talk to them. Get them to be honest with you and transparent with you before you sign a contract.
And just know that also, I mean, a lot of people will talk about temp and backup care, and we all have a lot of opinions about it, truly. And as you've seen here, of course, and at the end of the day, we really love it. And it is sometimes a slog, right? It is sometimes a grind. It is sort of hard. It's hard. I mean, you're working with lots of different personalities. I told my team this morning in our staff meeting, the hard thing about your job is that you're working with tons of different personalities for the caregivers and lots of different personalities with the families. And somehow we're trying to make these matches, right? And these relationships happen. And it's just tough. But it's also, for me, it's missional. It's serving families. I've got 2 little boys. You can see them back here. They don't look like that anymore, but date nights are important for us, for me and my husband, and the work that you do in temp and backup care is so important. It's blessing families all over your city. It's amazing work. It's missional work. It's important. It makes impact, and it's exciting too. So find the really great things about it that you love, and push through in the hard days and lean on each other, because this industry is filled with a lot of people that want, we think we're competitors. We're not competitors. There's enough business for us all to win and for us all to find success. And we all find more success working together than apart, I think.
Agreed.
I would also say too that I'm a very big advocate of putting the service first. Obviously, yes, you want to have your boundaries, you want to have, what you're willing to do and not do, that kind of thing. But if you're putting the service first before you're putting the paycheck, you're going to find yourself, you love what you do. You're going to also find that the revenue will come tenfold, because you are focusing on what you're doing for the family and that service and what you're bringing to them. And that will also trickle down to verbal references, referrals as well too. It's just an amazing thing to focus on that instead of focusing on, oh my gosh, I need to pay my bill this week, especially if you're starting out. Focus on that. Also, I'm really, really huge. And I don't know if newer agencies understand this. I don't know if newer NCSs or postpartum practitioners absolutely understand this, but get a solid lawyer on your side, one that you can talk to about your job and what you do, and one that is going to back you up, and one that also that's going to tell you the truth too. Because I just feel that there's these small things that get in the way that people don't think that are that important, and it can come back and bite them. I see a lot of people being like, oh, can I see your contract? Can I see this? Can I see that? Yeah, it's great for a reference, but make sure that you get a lawyer to look over yours, because again, it's different state laws, it's different, insurance, all sorts of different things based on where you are and the type of care that you're giving too.
Absolutely. Well, with that, thank all of you for your time. Lindsay, Erin, Brianna, we will see you in one moment for some live Q&A. And thanks so much for joining us for APNA Virtual. Cheers.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, ladies and gents, we are back with the live Q&A, and the Q&A chat is on fire. So we have so many questions. So we're going to do our best to rapid fire through these, if we can all commit to keeping our answers pretty succinct, so we can get to as many of them as possible. So question number 1, do you employ your temp and backup care providers, which you already spoke to? And if so, how do you handle workman's comp?
Brianna's gonna have to speak into that one.
So yes, we do. We employ, and workman's comp is handled in Washington State. It is all handled through the state. So different states have different laws, and in Washington, we're a little bit unique. They have sort of a monopoly thing going where we are required to use Washington State insurance for workman's comp. So it kind of makes it a little bit easier. We don't get to join the free market on that kind of stuff, but it also, we're just stuck with whatever they have. Yeah.
I appreciate that insight. Next question. How do you handle clients who need temp care for just a few days, but they have very, very specific language around their requirements for age, educational requirements, even, spoken language? Anybody want to take that?
Yeah, I'll take that. Actually, this is something that we deal with quite often. I think if you have temp businesses, even permanent placement businesses, is always, lots of different opinions on their value system, who they want, different, perceptions that they have. We just tell them, look, we don't get in the mix of, of course, discriminating based upon the things that we cannot discriminate. And we always list those things to them. We're going to submit qualified candidates to you, and you, if you would like to decline that candidate working for your family, you let us know. And we'll just continue submitting qualified candidates that we feel like will be a good fit for your role on our side of the business. So again, reiterating our vetting process, what we do, and then of course, what we do not do, and then allowing the families, of course, to make that indecision for who they have in their homes.
Thank you so much for that. What is the best way to approach companies for backup care? So like to provide backup care for a company. Anyone have insight on that?
The way we do it is it's a long process of nurturing. It's building relationships and nurturing relationships and getting to know who the decision makers are and how to get in with those decision makers. So, a lot of people think it's the CEO. It's not. A lot of people think that it's the HR person. It's not. You need to get in with the CFO. That's who you need to talk to. They're the ones that they're in the control of the money. So you need to get in through HR, and then you need to speak with the CFO, and you need to win them over. And it takes time. It is not something that's going to end, one meeting is not going to do it.
Yeah. Listen, I'm here for the effectiveness of these responses. I just want y'all to know y'all are on all the things. How many team members run your temp division?
I have 4 right now.
4.
I have 3 individuals who run our temp.
3. Aaron?
I run it all.
Wow. Listen, slow clap. How do you structure your backup care with certain companies, and are you employing ad hoc nannies as well? So I'm not quite sure if that means that are you just using the nannies that you already have, or are you hiring people specifically for that type of backup care?
Sorry. You go ahead.
I hire obviously specifically for the job. So we're looking for, postpartum doulas or newborn care specialists. However, I have a specific, level of what I'm looking for. So they do have to have a certain background or training as a newborn care specialist, especially the training that I've taken, because at least I know that training. And then they have to also fall in line with what I want to be representing my name and my company when they go into a home. So that really comes down to just having an interview with them and talking to them and seeing what their knowledge base is, because I firmly believe that just because you've taken a training doesn't always mean that your knowledge is top notch or not, because you can get knowledge from all sorts of different places too.
I concur. Anyone else?
So we don't actually hire based upon the actual we actually just renewed one of our private backup care companies just recently. They submit jobs to us. Of course, they have a direct line of access to us, and we use our temp sitters to staff those jobs with them. Our same sitter pool that we book with backup care, private families, things like that.
Wonderful. What would you say is the hardest part of transitioning or opening up the temp side of business if you've only been doing permanent up until this point?
I can't speak to this one because I've only ever done the backup care.
We actually just rebranded about a year and a half ago from college sitters back to the brand Mom's Best Friend. So we actually launched back into the referral-based model and relaunched our sitter division really in our city in Dallas and Fort Worth. So I can speak into that, even though we've been doing the sitter business for 23 years in DFW. I think if you have a thriving permanent placement division, I think a great benefit to your perm clients is to add the temp business along with it. So I think it's pretty simple. You're going to use the same branding, of course, the same mission and vision. You are just going to start hiring, of course, referral-based temp date night sitters. And a lot of times you can use your permanent placement nannies who want to supplement their income as they're looking for a full-time job. We do a lot of that. Hey, our job is to start getting you hired through Mom's Best Friend as soon as possible. So if we're going to start, searching for you a permanent placement job, but let's get you working on the temp side of the business to supplement that income so you can, have sustainability through this search process. So I'm not going to say it's easy. There's a lot of logistics. There's different insurance, different, liabilities that you need to consider, different models. But I think you actually are going to jump off that business, that perm business that you've already built, and you're going to build it. You're going to build your temp business on the back of it. I think it's going to be very successful.
I hope whoever asked that question feels that vibe. What are your top tips for recruitment and retention, especially in today's climate?
Ooh,
that is a great question. I'm like, do you want to take this?
Retention. I feel like for recruitment, one is timing is important. I feel like you gotta be ready to get them going right away. One of the things that I found that works really well in our favor is I'm incredibly transparent with our applicants about expectations and what that looks like. And if it's not what they're looking for, it's a waste of everybody's time to pursue the conversation. Because, a lot of nannies are looking for something right now. And there's an onboarding process, and it takes, it could take a few days or a week or whatever. And then they're gone in a month. And it's not worth our cost to onboard somebody for just a month unless they're really working hard for that 1 month. So I try to be very transparent about that kind of stuff with them. And what I found is it's worked in our favor, because more often than not, they'll say, thank you so much for this information.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. It's not, I find that transparency component makes a big difference. I carry that through with retention as well. So all of our nannies were very transparent about, we tell them, like, if they ask, I will tell them, yes, this is what our bill rate is. And this is why, this is where the expenses go. Do you have questions about that? Like, we're really honest about that kind of stuff. And I think that builds a lot of trust and loyalty. So it works.
I mean, I think that's essential to company culture. So I'm totally here for that.
Yeah, I think what Brianna's saying about like being open and honest about what you're charging the client, and obviously the nanny or the NCS is going to know what you're paying them. But I also feel that we really need, as an industry as a whole, we need to educate people on what actually it means to run a business.
Yes.
Yeah.
I see so many people that are like, oh, but I can make this and I can make this, and you're only going to give me this. And I'm like, yes, but I'm doing the marketing. I've just spent years of my reputation. I've done this. I've got, my assistant, fielding calls. I've got all this. And that's where that extra money goes to. And literally, I'm just giving you the client for you to go do the job.
Right.
And that's a huge part of the job too. Don't get me wrong, but they don't understand until they're out on their own. They have to market themselves. They have to do this and all the legwork that I've just spent years doing. So I feel that, like, as an industry, we really need to be a little bit more open about the business aspect of it, but not just say, hey, you can make this, but show them exactly where the agency's money kind of goes to and why it's helpful for a lot of people to work with agencies.
You could be a wonderful speaker for thousands of nanny threads all over the United States.
We'll do a webinar on that. Yeah.
I can't say that a lot of those nannies actually like me on those online platforms, but
Right? How do you handle the CGOT when operating a subscription model?
I don't know the answer to this. We actually do not do the subscription model yet. I don't actually think this question probably isn't going to be great for any of us, because none of us are doing this subscription model. We have definitely been considering it or thinking about changing our pricing, but we're not doing that right now.
Gotcha. What is the downside of not being exclusive to one backup care company over another? And what do you think is a good margin for backup care?
Well, I'll answer to the part, we saw no downsides. So we used to be exclusive with one, and then we dropped that, and we wanted to be able to partner with other networks, and we have done so. And now we partner with a couple other ones, and it's worked really well in our favor. I have seen zero downside to that. So that's great. As far as a margin, it's a beautiful question that I wish I could give a solid answer on, and it stings a little bit because I want those margins like placement margins, and they're not. They're not. It really is a numbers game. And I'm trying to margin.
Are they asking for like a dollar? Like
a percentage amount? So would you say a good margin is like 30%, 20%, 40%? Like, what would be a good margin? You wouldn't go below what?
In backup care, your margins can be, in our experience. Now, again, I think we said this in our session. I mean, this is really state by state, city by city. I mean, all of our bill rates, and we are actually exclusive with one backup care company. We have actually explored the options of wanting to provide backup care services to others. Unfortunately, with that contract, conversation, remember, we are bound contractually for that. So make sure before you sign that you understand those details. And margin wise, our margins for backup care are higher than our private family margins. And when we were the employment model, I mean, I think like a, $12 margin, I think is definitely possible when you're negotiating that bill rate as opposed to what your pay rate is for your business. I hope that is answering their question.
I'm going to expand a little bit on it because I agree with Lindsay 100%, and different markets are different. So, what Lindsay pays her caregivers is very different than what we pay in ours. In the Seattle and Bay Area, cost of living is a lot higher.
Yeah.
Right. And these networks don't fluctuate enough in those higher end markets, right? Like,
gotcha.
They're not bringing in, Yeah, they're not providing those same percentages. It really is
gotcha.
more of a numbers game on our end. Which is
Yeah, I'm in Texas, so remember, I mean, everyone just knows state to state, it's just so very different.
it's very different.
Mhm.
Yes. Last question, y'all. I just want to give a slow clap for how quickly you've gotten through all of these questions. We have one more. How would an agency who provides corporate backup care utilize their temp set nannies in their sitter services where your agency is the one that pays the sitters from the booking fee collected from the family?
So our booking fees are done hourly. So we don't do one time, we don't do a per sitting or per fee or per booking fee. We do hourly. And that's how we're able to, we employ our nannies hourly, and then we provide, we charge hourly. So it just crosses over in that way. It works out well for us.
So we don't actually work with corporate companies at this point,
Mhm.
but I can tell you that we have a nightly packet, like a nightly rate for
Mm-hmm.
a minimum of 9 hours, and
Mhm.
that's what they pay, like that fee for that.
Yeah.
And then if they want to add hours, we go by hourly.
Gotcha. This has been incredibly insightful. I hope everybody has been scrambling to take good notes or banking on the replay because this has been absolutely amazing for those who are thinking about temp care, operating in temp care, struggling in temp care, flourishing in temp care. We hope that you've received valuable information today and this entire day that will just catapult your business into places unknown. We thank you so much for your time and for joining us again for this amazing webinar with these amazing women in front of us. And at this time, we're going to turn it over to our president for our closing remarks.